doing the podcast. We're going to talk about the hollow earth.
The hollow earth?
Yeah.
What's that?
The idea that the earth itself is a bubble. And that bubble, it's a thick bubble, but it's a bubble. And that not only is the earth a bubble, but the moon is a bubble, all the other planets are bubbles, and the star that we swing around, also a bubble. And what I mean by bubble is that there's an inside to each of these objects, and inside that is a fire, just like there is on the outside. That fire is electrical in nature. Think about it. You have a bubble and it's spinning in an electronic soup, and it's spinning very fast. You know, it starts to pick up electrons. You know, like when you take a balloon and you rub it on your hair, and your hair gets a little sticky. You know, and it starts to get flyaway. That's what the Earth is doing. That's what the sun is doing. That's what the moon is doing. When it, no, that's a fire hazard.
Yeah.
Just so you know. Wizards know what a fire hazard is, just so you know. So that's the short version. The longer version is that the Earth and all the planets and the stars are hollow, and here's how they get that way. Because the universe itself, all the dark parts in between all the planets, full of electrons. Okay? Electron soup.
Electron soup.
Yeah.
And electrons.
Yummy.
Energy.
Full of chicken chunks and noodles.
Not chicken.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a little bit of chicken in it. And so anyway, when the Earth is we'll just start from, like, say, our solar system. When our solar system started out, it was just a churning gyre, you know. You know what a churning gyre is? A churning gyre is like when you're in the water and you see like a little toroidal spinning thing going around because like a big object fell into the water, or there's like a spot where the water meets in a cool spot and it'll spin and you'll get like a little tornado action. That's a
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
swirling gyre. So apparently the electronic soup attracts snappy other snappy objects, and it gives us anything that has any weight a snappy electron, if not more. You know, it'll collect electrons because of its heft. So dust particles start collecting hefty electrons, and then pretty soon you've got, oh wait, now you're like 6 inches shorter.
It was just regular shoes, but it did feel like that. Huh? Maybe because Matt got me those shoes.
Yeah. So, like, I feel like I'm mansplaining.
No.
But anyway.
I don't know what it is.
So
Oh, you're still
you've got the dust, and it's spinning in a flat, you know, pancake, you know, maybe like UFO shape, but it's all just spinning dust particles with as many electrons as they can hold. Well, it builds up potential, you know, and that potential is because of all the collected electrons. And zap, right? By a snap, and a lightning electrical will snap, you know, just like when you've gathered a bunch of electrons on the carpet and you touch the back of the neck of your best friend and you go hee 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 when it snaps and it like electrocutes them a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens on a larger scale. All of that dust, it snaps and it liquefies it in space. You know, like it turns it into hot lava. And as soon as any liquid is in space, it turns round, right? But it's also just like when you're blowing a bubble, you know, no matter how you try to blow it into a square or a diamond shape or a pyramid, it always turns into a bubble, right? Yeah. That's just the nature of our universe. Turns everything into a hollow bubble. And so there's as much earth on the inside of this earth as there is on the outside. Less 300-mile core. You can access the hollow earth from a giant hole in 1,200-mile hole in the North Pole, or a smaller one more hidden in Antarctica.
There's holes.
Yeah, 2 holes. Can you believe it?
No.
2 earth fuck holes. Didn't even.
Literally, like JG.
And
that's always Mother Earth and Father Sky.
That's right. And so a guy named Admiral Byrd more recently found that while he was flying this turboprop airplane with pontoons, that he was flying as far as he could to the North Pole. He's like, fuck it, I'm just going to fly to the North Pole. Well, the closer you got to the North Pole, more water, more water, more water, more water. But while he's flying there, he noticed that his compass started acting very strange and gyrating, spinning around and stopping in north, but then spinning. So he didn't exactly know where he was, but then he saw like this weird dim sun. So he followed that, and he went inside the earth for 1,200 miles in this little turboprop airplane looking, and saw like crazy things with his radio guy. One of them was herds of the giant elephants. What are they called? Woolly mammoths. Whole herds of woolly mammoths, giant strawberries, giant turtles, 9 feet tall. But before he could really explore any of that, he was set upon by a craft that looks like modern day UFO. And the UFO grabbed onto him. Hello, kitty. Hi, kitty. The UFO was set upon his airplane, tractor beamed it to the ground. They knew what his name was and what his radio man's name was as soon as he landed. And they were like, the king of the earth wants to talk to you. So anyway, he got to meet the king of the earth. And wrote about it later.
He's looking in the earth in the middle.
He was lurking in the earth in the middle. He flew there. So the man inside the earth who talked to him was like the king of inner earth. You know, like the guy that the Tibetans look up to. You know, the person, the guy whose civilization that, you know, they have always followed the edicts from. He says to Bird, we've been talking to your people about resolving conflicts and all of this, and you keep like doing stupid shit like blowing up nuclear bombs. Nuclear affects everybody, not just you. And you better cut it out.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've blown off any nuclear bombs since Admiral Byrd went in there. But when he came out, he told his superiors what his experience, and they swore him to secrecy. And then the U.S. government tried to invade the inner Earth by going to Antarctica in a hastily thrown together plan called Operation Paperclip. They thought they were no, not a paperclip. Operation High Jump. High jump meaning you're at the top of the earth and you're jumping into this hole, right? Well, they didn't make it very far. They had like warships and troop transport and all this stuff, helicopters, all this invasion force for Operation High Jump. But they were met with open hostility, openly hostile UFOs from the South Pole. So that didn't work out for them. And even now, Antarctica is not owned by any one country, but like shared by all the countries, which is very odd, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I didn't know that. Is that true?
Yeah, it is true. So, so that was like something that, a story that had been bouncing around for years, and I ignored it heartily, you know, ignoring Hollow Earth stories and theories and whatnot. But then I accidentally came across this story during the pandemic where there was, in the 1800s, father and son the father and son decided to sail north. The father had found this island that was full of woolly mammoth tusks. And here's the woolly mammoth piece once again, right?
Yeah.
And they wanted to find Valhalla also, which is like the famous, you know,
Viking.
northern Viking heaven. Right. So
They wanted to find heaven on earth.
yep. And so they were sailing north. Well, they happened to do it at the right time, and they got through all of the calved off icebergs before they started rolling. You know, once they melt for a while, they'll start moving around, rolling, and they'll eat anything in their path, you know. But they just had like a little fucking sailing boat, 28-foot sailing boat. Sailed to the Middle Earth by accident, looking for this fucking island full of walrus tusks. So there is a chance that the dad had already gone to the Middle Earth and didn't know it before because of this walrus tusk island that he had found. Because, or not walrus, but woolly mammoth tusk island that he had found. So the fact that there was a woolly mammoths, herds of them on the inside, is not lost on this story either. But what was fantastic is the journey is all written down for posterity, and what they found inside was that they were met by a giant ship that could move lightning fast across the water. And they had their little sailing vessel, and this giant ship, like as big as a city almost, comes flying in on this waterway. Was no longer an ocean, but a freshwater river, full of people of gargantuan stature, singing their hearts out to harp music being played by somebody. So just a giant ship full of like people singing, la 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 la, And they found them, and they just thought, these two guys, they're so little and cute, we're gonna adopt them. So the giants adopted these two little guys, the father and the son, and they stayed in the Middle Earth for 2 years in Valhalla, the inner Earth, learning their customs and finding all of the chairs to be oversized and fit for people of much larger stature than they themselves. But that the giant people were very jolly and curious and happy to show them around. The dad was like, oh, I need to get back to my lady, I gotta get back to my wife. So they left after 2 years. And when they left, the people were sad to see them go, but they're like, okay, we'll let you off over here. This is where we found you. They could not sail north because the wind is always coming from the inside of the hole from the north. So they tried for like 2 weeks to like sail northward, and they just couldn't do it. So they had to go south. So all the way across the earth, from one end to the next, inside the earth. And they came out in Antarctica. But when they came out during the spinning glacier period, and the boat that they were in got capsized, and the dad went down with the ship, and the son came up on one of the glaciers. He was discovered by accident by a Russian whaling ship, and he told them about the inner earth, and he was immediately put into the brink on the ship, like basically like jail for like people on a ship,
Why?
because they thought he was crazy. And then when he got home, he tried to tell people the story, and they also thought he was crazy, and they put him in a sanitarium for like 20 years. But somehow he escaped from the sanitarium and ended up in Los Angeles. And when he was like 70 some years old, he found that his next door neighbor, or the guy that lived down the street, was a writer, and he conveyed all the information to this writer guy so that people would know about the inner earth. And that story is called the Smoky God, which is referring to the inner sun. Is when when the earth is spinning around in that primordial soup of electrons that I was talking about, it comes down through those openings, top and bottom, and it meets in the middle, and it sparks off like a welder's torch sparks off. And so the inner earth has a sun, and it may only build up enough potential to spark off for 12 hours, or it may be going off the whole time. I forget, but that's how they have a light inside the earth, is through this spinning collection of ions that spark off in the center, which they call, the inner earth people call that sparking off the Smoky God. They don't call it the sun. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So that's the name of the story, the Smoky God.
That's cool.
And that's the very short version of that story. Yeah, and it's one of the best written stories because it's like old world kind of languaging, you know, of a 76-year-old sailor guy from Norway who learned English as like a fourth language. And the guy that he had write it was like a technical writer, like a law writer or something. So like the dude was just like, just the facts. So it's not like the most arduous when it comes to detail, but it does get the information across, and it's a very accessible story. And when I thought that I was dying from the vids, I was super stoked to have that, to find that, you know, in the digital library of the world.
Wait, how did you find that story?
I was surfing on Reddit, and like on the conspiracy site, and somebody was talking about the Hollow Earth, and that was one of the reference books. Yeah, so I had the smarts enough to I had the smarts enough to read that story. Once I heard about it, go look it up and find that it actually existed in like the Library of Congress.
That's rad. Did you check the water temperatures? Did you check the water thing? I don't have to take a shower today, I guess. Which is weird, but I should because I worked so long, but...
Oh my gosh.
But I don't really need to. It's probably going to be pretty cool. But did you check it?
I didn't look at all. I was only here for like 3 seconds longer than you were.
Thanks for the podcast. 23